The NASCAR Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is presented by WynnBET. WynnBET is now live in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Tennessee, and Virginia. From boosted same-game parlays to live in-game odds, WynnBET has what you need to win. Sign up today, bet $100 and get $100 at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WynnBET. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET. State restrictions apply. We're also brought to you by the SGPN merch store. Head over to store.sportsgamblingpodcast.com and use promo code MADNESS for 10% off of orders of $40 or more.
Driver, start your engine!
Strap in and pull those belts up tight as the Sports Gambling Podcast Network presents the NASCAR Gambling Podcast.
I'll wreck my mom to win a championship. I'll wreck your mom to win a championship.
With all the news and the best bets for your NASCAR weekend.
It refrains me from not beating the out of you right now because you ask me stupid questions. But since I'm on probation, I suppose that's improper to say as well. If you could talk about racing things, we could talk about racing things.
Now, here are your hosts, Rod Villagomez and Cody Zeeb.
After a full weekend in the desert, quite literally, actually, because Las Vegas was in the desert. And then if you watch the F1 race along with us and the F1 Gambling Podcast, the first race of the season was also in the desert. But anyways, after a weekend in the desert of racing, it is the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He's Cody Zeeb. I'm Rod Villagomez. Las Vegas is in the background, as I'm sure many a broke gambler is happy to see as well. But Cody, buddy, a full weekend of racing. Did you enjoy? Let me just put it this: did you enjoy Las Vegas racing?
I did. It was a good weekend. The Cup Series, I know it was very clean race, not and very caution free, which can sometimes lead to strung out racing. But unfortunately, at the end, we end up with the overtime finish that screws us out of Kyle Larson. But Austin Hill saved the day on Saturday, hitting 22-1. And then F1 we had this weekend back. We'll talk about that on the F1 Gambling Podcast, but new year, a lot of the same things. Can't trust Ferrari. Max Verstappen is really good, by the way. IndyCar also back. That was a crazy race. There were some insane incidents in that race. There was cars going airborne. Man, I almost another one where a bad beat, I feel like, but had one of the better cars in the field at 7-1 and missed out on it. But great weekend of racing. I had a lot of fun. It was great to see all of the series in action, all three NASCAR series, the two open wheel series. We had a full slate, so it was a good time.
It really was too. And honestly, Friday and Saturday night provided probably some of the most fun of actual racing that I've seen in a little while, only because it was pretty close and there was a lot of things going on, a lot of storylines playing out up and down the field. Sunday, I mean, like I said in the Discord, I didn't get a chance to watch it live. Unfortunately, I was on a military weekend, so I didn't necessarily get a chance to watch it. But when I did watch it back later that night, it was okay. But at the same time, I was kind of longing for the action of Friday night, especially. Friday night was a great race. So,
we've talked about that so many times, like how often do the trucks and even the Xfinity provide some of the best racing on the weekend. In the Cup Series, is always, I had retweeted the Jeff Gluck poll, good race poll earlier, and there was comments on there about, people need to, why are you voting no, basically, and like, I vote yes almost every week. Like, I'm just one of those things, I'm just happy to be here. Like, we have a Cup Series race, right? And so some weeks aren't going to be as good as others, but I still felt like there was enough action throughout the field and enough good racing. Yes, Byron dominated a good majority of the race, and then, at the end it was Larson there, and then we got the exciting overtime finish as NASCAR is way too quick to the caution button yet again. We'll get into that later, but no, overall it was great racing on the weekend. I enjoyed it a lot, had fun. Looking forward to staying in the desert this weekend and going to Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, listen, for what it's worth, as far as, and Friday, we'll talk about that as well. Despite what happened on Friday, there was still so much stuff going on. And it was like, you could up and down the field. This is why we tell you, everybody too. This is why we tell you that it's so much more fun when you're betting up and down the field, because then you really are paying attention to, where that 20th place truck is or what that 23rd truck is doing. You actually have so much more to cheer for than just who's in the lead. And I mean, the Discord alone on Friday was just, it was awesome. It was really awesome. So thanks to you guys for having a fantastic accompaniment to that race.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Shout out to those guys. They keep it popping, turn the races. And it was a good time for sure.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and just start going down our bets, and we're going to just go ahead and kick it off with the truck race. And then we'll take a break and come back with the other two series. But it was the Victoria's Voice Foundation 200 Truck Series, and that was the Friday night race. It was we knew that Kyle Busch was going to be in it. Spoiler alert: Kyle Busch won, and not just one, but won handily. He had 84 laps that he led out of the 134. Totally ran away with it. But Cody, at points, it almost didn't seem like he may end up winning. And then also, sometimes it just, there's one guy on the playground, right? He's taller than the rest of the kids. Like, he's playing basketball, and he knows that at any point he can score, right? But he's letting those little kids kind of swat at the ball, right? And then he's guarding them kind of loosely. And he's like, oh, look, you got a basket. Like, that's what I felt like Kyle Busch was all race long, was that big kid on the playground, just kind of letting the little kids feel good for a little bit before he ultimately dunked all over him and hung on the goalpost.
Yeah, the comment was made in the Discord. It was like he was playing with them. He was nice enough to give some of the guys some stage wins and collect the points. And then at the end of the race, he just ran away with it. We kind of talked about that at the end of the DFS show on Friday after we saw him lay down that qualifying lap. Like, okay, this is going to be the same Kyle Busch truck that it always is. And no surprise that he ended up just kind of running away with it there. But I think we still had some pretty good angles and stuff, and a couple things that were so close to cashing pretty big. Just not quite there.
No. Yeah. And I think it all began with Stuart Friesen as a top 5 truck. Oh, my poor Canadian guy qualified 22nd. He did work his way up to 14th. And he did, he was up there a little bit, but not really a top 5 truck for the most part.
Yeah, and it was just uncharacteristic of him at this track. And I mean, everybody all week was talking about how good he is here, his history at this track, and then bad qualifying effort, and they just never really figured it out from there on. Going to be kind of interesting to see if that's something that keeps up or if this was just a fluke week. And the track he does so good at it is somewhat concerning. So we'll have to keep an eye on that going forward.
Yep, I hope so.
My first matchup, this is what we get for betting on John Hunter Nemechek, I believe is what you said in the Discord. His official final status was vibration. That was what took him out of the race.
And not a good vibration either.
Not the good kind. So unfortunately, he does lose the head-to-head matchup to Ty Majeski. Majeski ends up running 5th, so pretty good day for him. I expected him to have a good day. I just thought that John Hunter would be better. But really, looking even through the stages, he wasn't really anywhere to be found. So it just wasn't quite what I had expected out of John Hunter in that Tricon truck.
No, not at all. Although I did have Grant Enfinger as the winner of Group E. I think that one hit, actually, right? I can't remember exactly who was in Group E.
I don't know. I don't. I wrote it down here.
Yeah, you did write it down.
Heim, Majeski, and Rhodes.
Oh, and no, that's right.
No,
he did not. I was thinking of a different group that somebody ended up not winning either. But yeah, so Ty Majeski obviously beat Grant Enfinger. But look, Enfinger he led 3 laps in this as well. And it was one of those situations where, I mean, granted, it was not, he was out of sequence at one point, but I really did think that Grant Enfinger was going to at least have a better finish than that. But again, Ty Majeski just looked too strong for the most part. So that was the one that I was really, are you going to give him trouble all day long? And he did. So unfortunately, he didn't catch that.
Corey Heim was the one. But yeah, Heim over Enfinger. And yeah, I mean, Enfinger actually looked good throughout the day. 4th in stage 1, 5th in stage 2. But Ty Majeski ends up 5th in the race. Or no, Corey Heim. I'm all over the place here. Corey Heim, rather, 4th in stage 2, and at the final race. And then Grant Enfinger ends up finishing 9th. So did cash that one at minus 135.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, that 11 truck was solid. I don't know why and how he was running up there all day, but he was.
Yeah, and that was over on Derek's betting preview show. Him and Full Tank with Phil had recorded a preview, and that was their big debate on there was, do you trust the Chase Purdy in the KBM truck, or do you trust Heim in the – or no, was it somebody? It was somebody else from the Tricon garage. It was Kaz Gralla is who it was, but they weren't – the point was – basically, how are these Tricon trucks going to do? And Gralla ended up getting caught up there at the end, but they actually impressed quite a bit. Purdy did too, honestly, with an 8th place finish. So I think that both of them were kind of right. Phil was going with the Purdy side of things, and Derek had the Gralla side of things. But both ran well throughout the race. Of course, Purdy with the better finish, but there was a lot of questions on both of those teams, right? As they switch manufacturers, was KBM still going to be anything with Chevy? We've kind of dogged on their driver lineup. I specifically have, just because it's like, but actual good results from them. And then the Tricon trucks looked pretty good as well. And speaking of a Tricon truck, I had Tanner Gray as a top 5 finish at plus 650. Man, he was running good all day. He was 10th in stage 1, 9th in stage 2, was hanging out in the top 5 there at the end for a little bit. And then in one of those late deals, got shuffled back, ends up finishing 13th. So did not quite cash that one.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was actually thinking that Tanner Gray bet was looking fantastic for a while.
Yeah, he was running. I mean, he was top 5 for quite some time, and I'm thinking, okay, here we go. This is looking pretty good, and then didn't quite pan out there at the end. I think it was that last group of pit stops, I want to say, because they had green flag pit stops there at the end. I think it took them a little bit longer on the right side, and that really cost him a bunch of spots there at the end.
Yeah, actually, it was pit road that slowed him up. That kind of gave him. He had this little bit slow out of the pit.
Speaking of pit road, what a crazy story that was Friday night with the pit guys. End up being late. They if you missed it, they were supposed to leave Friday morning from North Carolina, where the teams are based, and they had engine troubles in the plane, so they had to wait for the other plane to come back from Phoenix or from Vegas to pick them up. Then they had to land in Kansas or something, got delayed there on taking back off. They were late to the race. They were almost through stage 1, and there's, pit crews. They got a police escort from the airport to the track, and they're running in. Those guys are big athlete dudes, and they're just running with all their gear and stuff and gearing up and going to change tires and stuff, saving the day for a lot of these guys. That was pretty, I don't know I've ever seen anything quite like that, but props to those guys. They got their extra air time and their extra kudos that they fully deserve. Those guys are absolutely amazing.
And what's crazy is Kyle Busch had the full service guy from the Chevron down the street, like changing his tires. I mean, it's basically, the 70-year-old man that reads the paper and just makes sure that you fill up, the guys running out trying to change tires. And it's just like, yeah, it looked like you could tell that the professionals versus the guys who sit on the couch and go, oh, I could do that. That's easy, right? No.
Yep. Yeah. Because you got the road crew, and those, like, when we do see the races where the Truck Series or the Xfinity Series isn't with the Cup Series and they don't have the live pit stops for that reason, it's the road crew guys, and they can go out there and change the tire, but usually they have a 5-minute break to do so. And in the heat of the moment, it's not quite as easy.
I almost thought they could have called AAA and got better service out of that. Like, hey, come here, change this tire for us.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right. Well, my next bet didn't cash either, and that was Christian Eckes over Ben Rhodes. But wait, right, Ben Rhodes, what a run that guy was having. I honestly did not expect him to come out and have this good of a run. And look, this did not cash by much. How many double negatives can I use? Ben Rhodes finishing 3rd, Eckes finishing 6th. We talked about Eckes a little bit earlier, but yeah, Ben Rhodes, he looked solid, and I almost thought he was going to put up for the win as well. He led a few laps in this one as well. He only led 2, but again, he was up front every once in a while. He'd pop his head up front and then get it slashed back off. Him and Carson Hocevar were having a pretty good battle up there until Kaz Gralla got in the mix for a half a second.
Yep. Yeah, it was very impressive by Rhodes. We talked about it last season. I mean, he really struggled throughout the season. He was defending champion at the time. and ended up making the Final Four and finishing second in the standings. But through the regular season, it was a big time struggle. He didn't show up at a lot of these tracks. And so, and again, big questions around ThorSport, right? They switched from Toyota back to Ford again. Where is that going to leave them? So we definitely got a lot of questions answered, and a lot of the top teams, to probably not a real big surprise, are still some of the top teams.
Indeed.
Next up for me, I had the Raja Karuth to win Group B. This one actually looked pretty decent for a little while. Haley Deegan was kind of the big one that I was worried about in that group. She ends up caught up in a wreck early on and is out. I hate to see that for Haley because I am a huge fan of hers, but that gave me some hope at that point that that maybe we would get the results from Raja. He was running decent kind of all day. He finished 5th in stage 1, 7th in stage 2, and then trouble struck. I don't remember what happened to him.
He got, I think he got squeezed on one of the restarts, and
I think so. Maybe he bumped into the wall or something, and so he ended up he ended up all the way back in 29th. He was actually the last car that wasn't involved in a wreck or wasn't out of the race because of a wreck or a problem. So he looked good for a while, and so I was feeling pretty good about that, especially getting it at the plus 500. And with Haley going out, she was again kind of the big one in that group. It was Dean Thompson, Brett Holmes, Jake Garcia, and Daniel Dye that were all in that one. And Jake Garcia ends up with a 10th place finish. Very good run for him. So he's the one who ended up winning the group.
Yeah. That was one that you were looking down the score sheet to try to follow along with, which is why.
And that gave you people all over the board throughout the race. I mean, they were stretched out near and far throughout the race there.
Yep. Another one that had you surprisingly looking down the speed chart was my next one, and that was Zane Smith over Ross Chastain. This one got Cody's eyebrows up when I brought it up because he was expecting Ross Chastain to come out and do better things than Ross Chastain did. He struggled so much.
Did not have a fun time.
No, he probably wished he would not have gone out. I mean, and he said too before it was his interview, he was like, "Oh man, I just love to race. I just love to come out and run these things." And next thing you know, he gets in a truck that's not running well, and I'm sure that wasn't fun. He finished 24th and really didn't even sniff the front at all. He started 23rd, finished 24th. That 41 truck just did not have it at all.
He ended up in 9th in stage 1, but then really after that, you didn't see much of him. And Hocevar was up front all day. I mean, he was 8th in stage 1, but then he won stage 2. He ended up with a 7th place finish. He's also in a nice truck. And so you kind of thought, man, like, did Ross just get that bad of a truck or did he have other issues? But it just seemed like they couldn't get it to his liking. And he really was never a factor all day.
Nope. Zane Smith ultimately finishing 2nd. He led 8 laps, which was it the second most? No, the third most. Yeah, the third most of the day behind Kyle Busch and Carson Hocevar, who led 19. That says something when the third most laps led is 8.
Is 8, yeah. Which is probably about the same in the Cup race, actually. But yeah, and I also had Zane Smith at the top 5, minus 115. This was pretty easy money. Again, there was a little bit of a question. So he won stage 1 early on. He was looking great and then was kind of disappeared for a while. I think he had a penalty maybe. I feel like that was the case maybe with Smith, but disappeared for a while, ended up back up there at the end, right where you knew he would be, right? He's, I think, easily the best driver in this series as a regular driver. Of course, Kyle Busch, the best driver when he's in it. But for your regular cast of crew, I think that it's going to be a lot of the Zane Smith show this year. So a top 5 at minus 115. Looking back, easy money there.
Yeah, I mean, again, we talked about Zane Smith, and I think the only reason that kind of we didn't pick him to win, I think, is just because he had just won. So, it's kind of like can he do it again? I don't know.
Right.
But
I think his odds weren't that great for Kyle Busch being in the field because he was second favorite, of course, where he should be. But I think he was only for 400, 450, something like that. And it was kind of like, with Kyle Busch in the field, it makes you not want to go that low on somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, and basically we did tell you to bet the field. I mean, that was one of the bets that we did give you. The field was decent enough price to bet. Unfortunately, that obviously didn't hit, but for a while, parts of it looked like it could. And then Kyle was like, no, I'm taking the ball and I'm going to dunk.
Yeah. And that's tough because, I mean, you're literally getting 35 other people again. I mean, you're getting everybody else against one driver. There's so many things that can go wrong. And we just seen it the week before at Vegas, or at Auto Club rather, where a guy like Kyle Larson, right, the easy favorite, and then he has issues early, things go wrong. Same thing happened to Cole Custer the previous week at Auto Club as well in the Xfinity race. And so the thought was there once qualifying happened and we saw Kyle Busch, it was like, oh, okay, it's going to be tough at this point for anybody to beat him. And I actually, in the Discord, I said before the race, I think he was at minus 150 or something. I was like, I'm just going to go ahead and load up on him, because I think that's going to be the play here. And obviously ended up being, for winners, I had Chastain at 7-1. We already talked about him. Nowhere to be found all day. Corey Heim at 10-1. We talked about him as well. He had the 4th place finish, so feel good about that for that being 10-1. And Tanner Gray, 100-1. I don't give out long shots just to give out long shots, people, as you'll find out when we get to the Xfinity side of things, right? I give out long shots that I feel like have a good chance. Sometimes I'll toss out a long shot like Austin Dillon on Sunday, and he was nowhere to be found. But there's a reason that you give them out, and we already talked about how Gray ended up just in 13th, but even at 100-1, that's a pretty good price. He was in the top 10 in both stages. He was up there throughout the day, top 5 running there towards the end until he had the issue on pit road. So at 100-1, I'll take a top 13 finish anytime I get somebody at that type of price.
Yeah. Well, I had John Hunter Nemechek. That'll be the last time I do that. And then I also had Matt Crafton, who, man, I was a little disappointed. I thought he had 11th place finish. Not bad for Matt Crafton. But I don't know why I expected more out of him than I did. It was just, I don't know. He finished well in stages 1 and 2. Like, he finished in, I think, 6th place in both, actually, in both 1 and 2, running just around the top 5 all day long. Thought maybe he had a little more for it. Didn't happen. That's all right. But Kyle Busch was in there. And we told you to bet Kyle Busch. I mean, at no point did we say, don't bet Kyle Busch, but we also told you that other stuff can happen. But yeah, I mean, we picked Kyle Busch. But that's just neither here nor there.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I mean, just that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, well, especially with Kyle Busch in a field of like second graders with basketballs.
Yep, and honestly, I mean,
truck racers are better than second graders with basketballs.
Yeah, but you look at the Saturday race with Xfinity, right, and the odds were about the same as they were on Friday, and he wasn't even up front really. I mean, he ran in the top 10 all day, but he did not have a car to win that race, which give me 2 colleague cars and tell me Chandler Smith's in one and Kyle Busch is in the other one and tell me one dominates a good portion of the latter days of the race. I would never have picked Chandler Smith, but we'll get into that, and props to him for his run.
We will get into that. After the break, we'll talk some Xfinity bets and break down that race as well. But let's tell you about Underdog Fantasy. Let's tell you about WynnBET. Actually, WynnBET's the official online sportsbook of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Getting a little ahead of myself. WynnBET is active in a bunch of states, and there are tons of ways to win, including live betting and same-game parlays, which is also known as WynnBET's Build Your Own Bet. March Madness is almost here, plus plenty of ways to get down winning on the NBA, NHL, and, of course, the XFL. Sign up today. You're going to get a special offer. Bet $100, get $100. Limited to state availability. And, of course, for our DGens only, if you hit the biggest long shot parlay of the week, you're going to get a $1,000 free credit. So much to choose from, and all you got to do, head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WynnBET so they know that we sent you. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET. Offer subject to change. Terms and conditions at WynnBET.com. Must be 21 or older and present in the state where playthrough WynnBET is available. If you or somebody who has a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. Again, Xfinity took the track as well as they are prone to do for the Alsco Uniforms 300 Xfinity Series. We did tell you, of course, that this was going to be a much more difficult task for Kyle Busch than was the truck race, and we were right. Kyle Busch had a much different race this time around than he did in the truck race. Still, ultimately finishing 4th in the race, but boy, he had his hands full, and he definitely was not as comfortable in that car, in that Colin car, than he was in that truck earlier in the week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we've talked about it already. Like, this is a loaded Xfinity field. We weren't sure kind of coming into the season with the departure of a loaded field from the previous season, but it's even more spread out now, or maybe not quite as top heavy, where you have a bunch of A guys instead of a couple of A plus guys, maybe, I guess would be a good way to put it. But yeah, Kyle Busch is going to be back in the 10 car this weekend at Phoenix. So we'll see where his odds are at. Maybe they drop a little in this race because he didn't do so well this past weekend, and that might be an opportunity for us to get on it a second week in that car, more comfortable. We'll get there whenever the odds drop. Of course, it's Monday evening now, and odds are not out yet, unfortunately. But yeah, Chandler Smith too. I don't know that we really had any bets on him, but man, he's been impressive through these first two non-super speedway. Of course, Daytona, is its own beast, but these two races since, Chandler Smith has shown up quickly as a rookie. We weren't really sure, those college cars, Daniel Hemrick, the last couple of seasons, just nowhere to be found for the most part. And then AJ Allmendinger had a lot of success, but he's a very talented guy. Maybe was getting more out of that equipment, we thought. With them shifting to Cup Series, we weren't really sure, but Chandler Smith has showed up. And Landon Castle in that 10 car last season didn't do much with it either. So there was definitely a lot of questions, but I want to give him a shout out. Sucks to lose it as they're taking the white flag. Sucks for him, not for us, because of course we had Austin Hill, and I was freaking out when that happened, Rod. I was jumping up and down and screaming. My wife and daughter were looking at me like, what the hell is your problem?
You didn't listen to the show, honey. I totally picked him. I totally am happy about that.
I think she figured it out at that point. Oh, you must have picked that guy, huh? Not only did I pick him, he was 22-1, and she doesn't care what that even means. So
I was about to say that's like, okay, well, now we go shopping. That's
exactly. What time is the next race? That's all. That was the question Sunday, because we had 3 races, but we got through it.
Listen, man, it's just a nice little sit. We told you it's a nice little sit on your couch day and just enjoy a day of racing.
That's what I told her. We're so busy all the time. We got basketball and gymnastics and all kinds of activities for my daughter. It's a chance to sit around all day Sunday.
Yeah, right. Oh well. All right. So we did have other bets on this other than our fun one, and we'll get to that in a second. But where we start? We start with yours, right?
Yeah. I had cold custard at plus 180 for a top 3, and he was cold custard because what the hell? I mean, as good as he was at Auto Club, and I don't know if this is part of they had to use the same cars, and maybe he just used that one up from the previous one. I'm not really sure what happened. I'll be interested to see if Brian Murphy comments on that on him and Derek's show this week from the Stewart Haas garage. But it just, I mean, I was expecting him to come out and be the best car and dominate this race, and really nowhere to be found all day. Scored an 8th place rather in the second stage. And then at the end of the race, he ends up 12th. I mean, he was never in the conversation throughout the day, which completely shocked me. I was very big on Custer doing something this weekend, and he just was nowhere to be found.
Well, and then he got caught up in the mix too. Like he got squeezed a little bit on a lap and never really recovered. I mean, he put himself in that position early on and basically never kind of got back to where he needed to be.
Maybe something just got knocked out that wasn't, how he wanted it anymore, and they couldn't get it from there. I hope that's what happened, because I I like him a lot this season and I want to be on him a lot, but after that performance, whew.
Yeah. I mean, but it's difficult too to continue the same level of success as you used to have when you've been gone for a little bit too. I mean, I know we both expected him to come back and pretty much be the conquering hero, but I mean, right now it's just kind of like he's coming back.
Yeah, you said it last week too. You said you're going to have to see him finish one before you feel comfortable in him. And yeah, I guess you were right. Well,
the rest of the class is caught up, whatever you tried back in the day is not necessarily going to work the same when you come back again. It's like coming back to school as a 30-year-old. The rest of the world had caught up, and I was like, oh my God, like I'm not the smartest kid in the room. Not that I was ever, but still. All right. So enough of my scholastic inaptitude. I had Tyler Reddick as a top 3 car, and Tyler Reddick was nowhere near a top 3 car. He was 10 positions off of that this race. I mean, you said it. You said the 24 car, the Sam Hunt car, was not going to be as good, but I had faith in Tyler Reddick, the driver. Granted, He started 15th. He finished 13th. It wasn't a fantastic race for Tyler Reddick. In fact, nowhere did he even hit any top 10s in the stages. I mean, it just was a ho-hum day for Tyler Reddick. He couldn't get that car near the front and obviously couldn't finish well enough to cash this bet.
Yeah, well, I think this confirms the Sam Hunt part of it, right? Because we had talked about it last season a bunch when John Nemechek was in the Sam Hunt cars. He could not do the same thing he could do when he was in the Gibbs cars. And with Tyler Reddick, it's obviously there's a talent gap there, right? So maybe he could overcome that, and not the case. I mean, he was not in the conversation all day, struggled continuously with that car. It is nowhere near these top level Xfinity cars. And obviously you put one of the better drivers in it and he couldn't do anything with it. So I think that just is going to confirm that. And we might be able to use that to our advantage going forward if Reddick, because I think he's got 3 more races scheduled in that car. And if we get some head-to-heads against him because of his name, because he's a Cup Series guy, we might have to fade Tyler Reddick, as crazy as that sounds, in the Xfinity Series, because that equipment is it's nowhere close.
Well, and not even that, but it doesn't matter now. Feels like what kind of equipment he's in, because if we'll talk about it obviously in the next segment, but maybe the beginning of the season is not everything he'd hoped it to be, and maybe we're gonna have to pull a Denny Hamlin where wherever Tyler Reddick is, we go the opposite direction until he decides to find where his speed is.
Yeah, this transition to Toyota has not been easy for him. He is definitely struggling. There's no question about that. Next up for me, I had Riley Herbst top 5 at plus 500. I think I just lost it completely. Plus 600 it was, rather. Again, 8th place, right where you expect Herbst to be, right? That's basically what I said. I said if you could find top 10 odds, that's where I would like to take him. I never saw top 10 odds for Xfinity. If you saw them out there somewhere, let me know, correct me. But I never saw them throughout the weekend of checking on it. But again, I expect him to be in the top 10 each and every week. Maybe he can pop up there and grab a top 5 every once in a while. 6-1, I felt like it was worth it. And he did exactly what I thought he would do.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. On a day where Cole Custer starts on the back for a backup car. I mean, that's the thing. Like we expected a better day out of a lot of these other cars because of that, right? And even Kyle Busch having to start in the back, right, for unapproved adjustments right off the bat. It was,
yeah, and something we're definitely talking on when we get to the Cup Series side of things, but Ford is off to a rough start this season, especially in the Cup Series. But I mean, Riley in 8th place was the top Ford, and then it was Cole in 12th. Granted, there's not a ton of Fords in this field. I mean, there's only, I think, 6 Fords were in the race, and they would be the 2 you expect to be the best, but 8th place was the best finishing of the Fords. And it's been a rough start for the Blue Ovals this season.
It has indeed. You know who it hasn't been a rough start for? Justin Allgaier. I had him as a top 5 car on this track at plus 105. Remember I was saying to you, why is Allgaier plus money for a top 5? Well, he finishes second and led 10 laps. This was a sweat though in the middle parts of stage 3, and I think even toward the end it was a little bit of a sweat for him to be in the top 5. He was in the top 5 at the end of stage 1. In fact, he was in second place at the end of stage 1. But
he had the restart violation where they sent him for the drive-through penalty and sent him to the back.
Mm-hmm. And
that's where it got hairy.
But he did. He had a fast car. I almost think he would have won had he not had that last penalty, because he had a fast car.
I would like to go ahead and stake my claim for my winner this week, Rod. Justin Allgaier is going to be who I take. Because we're going to Phoenix, and so I just want everybody to know I'm claiming it right now.
Just look at this guy.
But no, top 5.
This is how he does it. Like literally now I can't do it because then I can't be on Justin Allgaier. Thanks, man.
That's why I put it on here, so that there's proof that I was to it first.
Son of a.
Now you can't get in there and be, but no, Allgaier, I mean, we talked about it. He's going to be one of the better drivers all season. He's already proven it with a good start to the season. A top 5 for him, top 5 at plus money. That was stupid for that to even be a line. So props to you on calling that one out. That was a great bet. I had Sheldon Creed over Daniel Hemrick. This one ended up a little closer than it should have been. It was minus 150, but it did cash. Creed again, man, he looked good throughout the day. these RCR cars are no joke. Austin Hill obviously ends up winning the race in an RCR car. And Creed, again, was up there throughout the day and just continues to make mistakes that, man, you would have hoped in his sophomore season would have kind of wore off. They have not yet, but he still ends up finishing 9th. Daniel Hemrick, right? I think I said he would finish 12th, right about where you expected him. He finished in 10th place. That's where you're going to find Daniel Hemrick every week. Herbst is going to be in the top 10 for sure, and Hemrick will be around 10th to 12th each and every week, barring anything bad happening.
Hey, and this one literally took to just about the end for it to shift because Creed was not there.
It got hairy at the end.
Yeah, Creed barely caught him at the end and was able to pass him. So it was, that one wasn't even, that one was sweating all the way. This is what had you paying attention to the top 10.
I was already in a profuse sweat from Austin Hill running down the leader, so I was paying a little bit less attention to this one, but I did notice it getting hairy at the end there.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I was like, oh my God, this was not going to cash. What? And then all of a sudden, there we go. All right, my next one had Brandon Jones pitted against Sammy Smith. Shout out to Sammy Smith for running a really good race. I mean, he finished 17th, but like he was in and around a lot and being talked about quite a bit for hanging tough. And Brandon Jones, man, unfortunately just that was a one junior motorsports car that was not running the best.
Another guy who's struggled with his transition, right? He's opposite of Reddick. He went from Toyota to Chevrolet, and it's been these junior motorsports cars have been good. We've seen them running up in the top. I mean, the other 3 finished in the top 7, and they've been doing well. And Brandon Jones has been on the struggle bus so far to start this season. I hate it because he's a guy I love betting on. But if this keeps up, it's going to be something we're going to have to start to look at as far as maybe fading him until he figures it out. I do think he's going to figure it out sooner rather than later, but it's been a struggle. And like you said with Sammy Smith, this is 2 weeks in a row where he's been very strong, very fast. Got to get the finishes there because he's not quite done it, but good enough this week.
Yeah, I mean, he was 8th in stage 1, 5th in stage 2. I mean, again, they were talking about how the kid is barely old enough, like he's 18
He's still
years
in
old.
high school.
Yeah, still in high school. Like we're logging laps in the Xfinity Series. It's like, holy cow, man. I mean, I had nothing like that going on in high school, but yeah. So c'est la vie to Sammy Smith. Better things are ahead, I'm sure, and we're going to be betting on him quite often now. He's turning heads, turning my heads at least.
Absolutely, and he's a very talented young driver and a guy that we're definitely going to be talking about for years to come, I think. This next one, I'm torn, Rod. Do we keep betting on John Hunter Nemechek so that he doesn't finish well? Or or what's the play here? Because I took John Hunter Nemechek as a top 5 at plus 105. This seemed much like your Allgaier one to be an easy bet. He comes out, he wins stage 1, and then he kind of disappeared for a while, finishes 6th place, 1 spot out of cash in this one. I don't know. I mean, we saw it from him early, but then once he lost the lead in that clean air, he just wasn't really heard from much after that.
Yeah, and that was really what it is. Once he lost that lead, he kind of dropped like a rock, and then he had to find his way back up. And kudos to him for being able to find his way back up to 6. I mean, he led 45 laps in this, so he was a fast car. It wasn't as if he was like led a lap under during pit stops, but he was a fast car.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's shown to be very fast throughout the first couple of weeks here. And I think that he is going to continue to be a threat, and we'll probably have to keep betting on him despite us not wanting to. But those Gibbs cars are very fast. They're top of the road cars, unlike the Sam Hunt cars.
Listen, if nothing else, we did voice our absolute displeasure at having to and still, look, if you guys can figure out why we don't like John Hunter Nemechek, please join the Discord and let us know, because neither one of us can figure out why we don't like him. And John, listen, I said it last week. I'll say it again. It's nothing personal, but I'm sure you are just a great guy to have a beer with. But wait, is he old enough to have? He's old enough.
He's old enough.
Yeah. And please, let's have a beer sometime, because I want to talk to you and get to know you, so I don't just gutturally hate you for no reason.
You know his dad drove the Army car, right? You should be a fan of that.
I know.
That gives me an out, because go Navy, beat Army.
Now I'm going to show you that.
Getting a piece from Rod's collection.
Oh no, this is the Jerry Nadeau one, but I do have
it is the 01 Army car. There you go. Yeah,
and
so
this is all for the YouTube folks.
yes,
I'm doing this for you,
you gotta
YouTube.
get over on YouTube.
I think this is the John Hunter Nemechek Army car. So
Yeah.
I have it. I like your dad. I want to like you, John Hunter.
So yeah, next time we bet on you, help us out, right?
I don't know. I just did that whole shtick and you guys got to go to the YouTube and watch that. That
Yeah,
was ridiculous.
yeah.
I'll never do that again. Sorry.
It was great. I enjoyed it.
All right. So you got John Hunter Nemechek. I had another couple of young kids. Well, okay. Sam Mayer's a young kid. I had Sam Mayer over Austin Hill. Obviously, we know Austin Hill ended up winning the whole damn thing. So, except for Cody. Yay. It wasn't my pick to win, but it was Cody's pick to win. So I'm happy for you guys if you bet on him. 22-1. Fantastic stuff. But Sam Mayer, he led a lap in this one, started 13th, found his way up to 7th. For a young kid, I'm encouraged. I think we're gonna keep betting on him. I think he's got a lot of good, and of course he's in the Junior Motorsports stable, which is one of the fastest in the field right now. So them and Childress and now Colleague making a little bit of a name for themselves. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited for what's to come for Sam Mayer. So I will continue to take him and maybe think that I can't even anymore with Austin Hill. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I'm a guy who likes the underdog. So when people keep winning, it's like, oh, I don't like you anymore.
What more of an underdog do you want than 22-1, Rod? Come on.
No, that's what I'm talking about. That's awesome. But he won't be 22-1 for long. If he
Probably. Hopefully he is, because we'll keep taking him if he is. But no, yeah, Sam Mayer again is very impressive. Been an impressive start to the season. 7th place finish, not bad for him. But of course, Austin Hill wins the race. I had Cole Custer at 7-1. Again, we talked about him already. Just did not show up. I felt like at 7-1 though, the odds were very good for what had been the best car the week before. But Austin Hill, I said it, I could not pass up on a guy in this good of equipment that's this good of a driver at 22-1. That was the reason I took him. Again, I don't just throw out long shots to throw out long shots to say, I gave out a 100-1 winner or 22-1 or whatever. It's guys that I truly believe have an opportunity to win. Did I think Austin Hill was going to come out and be the best car on the day? No. Did I think he could put himself in position to be there? It was very close to not, right? Because he passed as the white flag is flying. Boy, that was a sweat, because I thought Allgaier was going to get them both at first, and then he held off Allgaier. He got there, and Chandler Smith just made the rookie mistakes and gave it up to him. But boy, that was a sweat. If you had that one, I know a lot of the guys in the Discord. I saw some people on Twitter as well that did. So shout out to all of you that were able to get in on that one as well. That was a good time. And then he made us work for it, because it didn't look like it was going to cash. And then he runs him down right there at the end, takes it as the white flag happens. And 22-1. Off to a good start to the season. Rod hit Kyle Busch last week at 10-1. Almost had Kyle Larson this week at 7-1. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then Austin Hill at 22-1. That's a pretty good way to start the season as far as winners go.
Fantastic way to start the season. I had Josh Berry at 7-1. Not bad. He finished in the top 5, so it wasn't as if he didn't have a chance. And in fact, he led a couple of laps there at the end as well. So Josh Berry, not bad. He finished where he started. He started in 5th, finished in 5th. But we talked about it. Junior Motorsports. Barry's going to be there. Barry's going to be,
and some potentially very big distractions for him, right? That we weren't aware of when we gave out that pick on Tuesday, or was it Wednesday, I think, last week. But obviously, and we'll touch on this in a few, but was in the 9 car after the Chase Elliott deal. So, they're freaking out Friday night, trying to get everything fitted and to his size and the car adjusted properly. And I'm sure if there was a sim available or whatever, he was trying to run laps in it and kind of, that can take a lot of focus away from what he was doing on Saturday. But still a top 5 finish. He was up there throughout the day, so I don't think it was a bad pick. And at the odds you got him at 7-1 again, still a pretty good pick, I think.
You got to think too that when you're about to make a cup start the next day, I mean, you're as much as you don't think you're not focusing on that, like you got at the back of your mind, you got to be thinking about that.
Yeah, and he's made a couple of cup starts for Spire Motorsports, but you're about to make a cup start in the number 9 car for Hendrick Motorsports, the Napa car, the popular driver's car, like on short notice. Like that is still a lot for a guy like that.
Yeah, I mean, I get nervous I don't know. I get nervous at way less things than that. So I can only imagine. I get distracted thinking about all kinds of other things,
Yeah.
like floating 01 cars all over the place. Like that's what I keep thinking. But
Yeah. That could be a bit of a distraction, I think.
yeah, but good on him to be able to just hold 5th place at least, and especially in a field that contained Kyle Busch, right? That everybody thought. And honestly, look, for Kyle Busch's sake, I mean, he only led 4 laps in this thing. Like he started 11th, finished 4th. So, I mean, he just kind of didn't have that same look that he did in the truck race. And we knew it. We knew that it wasn't going to be as easy as it was in the truck series.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a lot to do with this field. And again, Colleague isn't necessarily, well, I don't know. You think they're not one of the top teams, and then Chandler Smith runs up front all day. So who knows? I think that as the season progresses, I think we will see Kyle Busch get more comfortable in that car, and things will get better for him.
We will talk about the 3rd race that Kyle Busch participated in after the break. Didn't get any easier there either for Kyle Busch, and we'll touch on that when we come back. But before we do, let's tell you about Underdog Fantasy. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog is your home for off-season NFL best ball drafts, but they also got you covered for a ton of other daily games, including NBA, NHL, and PGA. Underdog Fantasy is a great way to get down on your favorite player props. They're not available in the state that you're living in right this second, or the one that you can jump to in about 10 minutes. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code SGPN. For those of you who enjoy my 01 car antics and are watching on YouTube, we appreciate you for doing so. We want you to continue to do that. We also want you to, what, Cody? Oh, Cody's got to unmute himself. He didn't expect me to pitch it over to him.
I didn't know I was getting called on here. I don't know what else we expect them to do, Rod.
Well, what do they got to do to get us on YouTube?
Well, yeah, just go to YouTube and like and subscribe and all that stuff. Click the bell.
Smash that subscribe button.
Click the bell. Live shows, more live shows coming soon. All that fun stuff.
Indeed. Do that. Go to YouTube. Find us. We're having fun. Hi. All right. It was the Cup race. It was the Pennzoil 400. I would say 400 miles of madness, but you and I both know that it was 400 miles. But it was nothing for, I mean, there was madness in the last couple of miles, unfortunately. But yeah, this race, yeah. What, I just want to know what you're thinking, like takeaways from this.
Well, I mean, I think we learned a lot. I think that Ford is having serious issues. Ford has got some big questions, and they're going to have some stuff that needs to be figured out. We're going to Phoenix, not to jump too far ahead, but this next week here, Ford dominated both of these races. Chase Briscoe won in the spring. Again, hanging out with BJ McLeod all day. I don't know what his deal is, but it was a rough weekend for him again. And then in the fall, Ryan Blaney had the best car. Joey Logano wins the race, wins the championship. So Ford was very, very good at Phoenix. We'll touch on it more when we get into the preview show. They have a package change. Things are going to be different on the short tracks. So a lot of questions there. But Ford has struggled last week. Ford struggled again this week. Even Kevin Harvick was calling his car a piece of shit during the race. Did not like it. Cindric somehow ends up with a somewhat decent finish, but otherwise, Blaney struggled a majority of the day. Logano got the pole. He was quick there, but then immediately dropped like a rock and struggled throughout the day. Ends up getting, being like the one car that gets wrecked and ends up finishing in last place. So I think that's the biggest takeaway. The other biggest takeaway is I picked 3 different Hendrick cars to win, and the one I didn't pick is the one that won. Because I originally gave out Chase Elliott on the show last week. I then changed that pick to Kyle Larson on the DFS show after the Elliott news. And I had given out Bowman too. And of course, it's William Byron who comes through. But Chevy domination towards the top, right? Hendrick seems to be the best team. Joe Gibbs even maybe struggling a little bit. Bubba Wallace was clearly the best Toyota on the weekend in the 2311 equipment. Trackhouse looked pretty good again. Not quite as good as they had last week at Auto Club, but those are probably my biggest takeaways. Is kind of like we thought, cream of the crop rising to the top, right? I mean, you go through here and it's Hendricks, it's 2311, Hendrick. Sorry, it's not Hendricks. Hendrick. Hendrick.
There you go, mispronouncing stuff again.
I hate it when people type Hendricks out. I'm like, it's not the guitar player that owns the car. Okay. The 2311, Joe Gibbs, and then Penske. Justin Haley finishes up there in the College car, but then it's Stuart Haas and it's Trackhouse. RCR back in 14th, but really RFK not till 6th, 17th. Like the top dogs kind of back at the top where we kind of expected that. And I think the parity is not going to be what it was last season. And that's not a surprise. That's what we expected, but I think that's very well playing out so far this season. Chevy also has won all 3 races so far in 2023. 2023. It is 2023, Rod. And they have won all 3 races so far this season. So something to keep an eye on as the other manufacturers maybe struggle a little bit to keep up.
Yep. Got a buddy, Discord Fortune reached out, gave me is it Chevy? Is it Ford this week to bet on? And I was like, you got to bet Chevy. I was like, I said, for nothing else, there's too many Chevys that are powerful in this field. Got to take Chevy over Ford in this one.
Yeah, and I think that not so much at Phoenix this week. It's going to be a totally different story. But when we go back to the next intermediate on the schedule, which again we're not going to count Atlanta in a couple weeks, but it's going to be a long while until we get back to Kansas in May is going to be the next one. But keep that kind of in your memory bank there of maybe when we get back to Kansas, it's going to be the Chevys and Bubba Wallace, I think, again at Kansas, like he proved last season. But Chevy may just be the way to go. And even Denny Hamlin said that Chevy clearly has an advantage, and Hendrick specifically has an advantage on these intermediate tracks, and it's going to be hard to catch up with them. And so it is going to be quite a few weeks until we get back to this style of track, but will be something to kind of keep in the back of your mind there that you might just go all in on Chevy when we get to Kansas in May, and then see if that holds true.
When all 3 drivers are on the podium, that's like a Red Bull-esque type of a thing. If Red Bull had one more driver in their camp, it would probably have been an all Red Bull podium at the end of that one race.
Yeah, and then another Hendrick 1, 2, 3. I think this is the 3rd or 4th time they've done that. They had the 1, 2, 3, 4 back in 2021 at Dover, where they swept the top 4. Obviously, with Barry being in the car, he kind of struggled throughout the day, which I guess I maybe should have seen coming a little more than the case I made on the DFS show.
Well, like you said, Hendrick 1, 2, 3. William Byron was the winner of this race. The only one that Cody did not pick to win, but that's all right. But we both started out with Harvick bets, didn't we?
We did. Kevin Harvick, top 10, plus 105. Again, lock of the week. Easily cashes. He hated his car, Rod. Still finishes 9th. Got a little bit hairy after that overtime finish we got into because it kind of got a little scary there. And I also gave him out a top 4 to plus 550. Blaney gets him late in regulation. They go to overtime. I'm looking. He passed Ryan Blaney. Yeah. Austin Cindric, where the fuck did you come from? Austin Cindric takes top Ford. Somebody in the Discord had Austin Cindric at top.
Saw that.
Gosh, who was it? I don't remember, but they, I'd like to give them credit, but they asked about Cindric beforehand. And I think I just said something like, yeah, I don't, indifferent on how I felt about him or something like that. And then
tossed it on him.
He ended up cashing out all those bets. So,
hey,
let
this be a lesson to you. Let this be a lesson to you, though, too, that, feel free, pick our brains and then go the opposite direction because it's on you ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he it was Pig Pinnell, I think is how you say his name. But yeah, he was all across the board. Win, top 3, top 5, top 10, top Ford. He had the whole shebang. So cash some of those. So props to him. Man, I didn't see that coming from Austin Cindric, and he was kind of just a late. I don't know if he took 4 tires maybe at the end there or something, but I don't know where he came from. But he spoiled my Harvick top Ford.
I wasn't even paying attention to him. That's the thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I just saw Harvick had passed Blaney, and I'm like, yes, he did it. And then, wow, there's Cindric. Yeah. PSA, the second that odds drop, if Kevin Harvick for a top 10 this week at Phoenix is minus 300 or less, just smash it. I don't care because he's got 19 top 10s in a row at Phoenix. And he's the king of top 10s. He's been doing it already this season, despite hating his car. Don't hesitate. Just do it.
Well, I had him to win the pole in this instance, and that did not happen. As we both know, Joey Logano was a Ford on the pole, but it was not Kevin Harvick. Unfortunately, he just didn't have pole speed. So he hated his car. That didn't happen. I mean, I thought for an 8-1 long shot to win the pole, that wasn't a bad a bad price given that he is as strong on this track as he usually is. Top 10 usually means you can try to lay down a pretty fast lap. But yeah, unfortunately that didn't happen.
Yeah, and you ended up with 4 Fords in the top 10 in that final round of qualifying. So I think that speed advantage that we talked about maybe is there for the qualifying trims type of stuff, and it's not translating to the race, whether it's a difference in the downforce or how the car works around other cars. I don't know exactly what the answer or the technical answer for that is, but maybe Ford to win qualifying bets are going to be good for a bit. Maybe they do have somewhat of an advantage there. Again, small sample size so far, but it'll be kind of interesting to see how that goes going forward. Next up for me, I had Kyle Busch, top 5. We talked about it. He was the favorite. We didn't want to pick him to win this weekend because of all the love he got. Struggled early. I missed the beginning of the race, but I think he got into the wall or somebody got into him, and his steering wheel was knocked off, or not knocked off, but was off alignment or whatever, I guess you could say. And he just really struggled to really get any type of grip later on in the car. Ends up with a 14th place finish. So not the result we're looking for, but again, a result of that contact. I think at plus 125 though, for being the favorite and for as fast as he had looked the week before, winning the race, obviously, I don't think it was a bad bet, and had that not happened early, I think, if he ends up 14th, I think he could have ended up at least in the top 10, maybe battling for a top 5 there.
Well, and look, he started in 5th place. So he started right there in the top 5. And for the first few laps until he sort of smacked the wall, he was running pretty free most of the day anyways. And for him, he glanced off the wall and then bounced again. It was like the back end and then the front end hit the wall, and the car wasn't the same after that. And
did they throw a caution for that, Rod?
No.
Because the same thing happened at the end of the race when Almirola bounced off the wall and continued to go straight just fine, and that was a caution flag. So
I'm going to go ahead and spoiler alert and say they did not throw a caution flag.
I know they didn't. That was my point.
I know. I'm
because they're.
Yeah,
I love NASCAR, but sometimes, they were just waiting for any small. It was like Suarez spinning out of the Daytona 500. Any little thing for that dramatic finish. Oh, I love him for it, and I hate him for it at the same time.
I see, and that's the thing. Like I'm that race was getting so, I don't want to say unwatchable and out of hand, but it kind of was. If you were just a typical NASCAR fan watching that race, you probably felt like you were watching an F1 race at that point.
But if you were holding Kyle Larson to win, you felt just fine about it, Ron.
Oh, you were loving life at that point. But yeah, you didn't need that to happen. So
yeah, oh well.
I get it. All right. I had Ross Chastain as a top 3 car. Well, of course, we talked about it. It was a Chevy, but it was not one Ross Chastain. And it wasn't for lack of trying. I mean, listen, Ross Chastain looked fast most of the day. He started 8th, ran up in the front pack, and then just kind of fell off. It was just, I think it was just he lost it. He lost the speed. He lost the edge and started to drop back. Cars were just chasing him and passing him there at the end. And he kept falling off too. It's weird how quickly he fell back to 12th. I mean, he was in the top.
Wasn't he top 5? I think before that caution, before they pitted, and then I don't know what happened there, but he definitely fell back. But yeah, he started good, finished 3rd in stage 1. He was 7th in stage 2. He's kind of running around up there all day and had a faster car. Again, I think that Hendrick and Trackhouse Chevys seem to be, even Suarez again. Man, he's been looking good. He's going to be a guy we're going to have to. I am specifically going to have to give more respect to because I've not done so much of that. But
yeah.
But next up for me, I had Denny Hamlin over Ryan Blaney. This one was not as easy as it should have been. Hamlin ends up 11th and Blaney ends up 13th, but Hamlin was clearly the better car all day. Again, Blaney struggled throughout the day. Hamlin was running 3rd, I believe, at the end of regulation there before they had the pit sequence, and then he ended up dropping back in there. I don't know how he got shuffled all the way back to 11th, but he did. But still cashes at minus 114. Man, I love Ryan Blaney, but these Fords are struggling. So I think that at least on these intermediate tracks, for sure, we're going to have to fade them a little, and it's going to be a few weeks before we see another one. But something to keep in mind next time we go back. If you're continuing to get head-to-heads like this, I think that we're going to have to fade the Ford camp other than Kevin Harvick because he can make shit work no matter what it seems like. But yeah, so Denny Hamlin over Ryan Blaney at 114. That one cashed.
It did. Austin Dillon over Daniel Suarez did not cash in that same vein. Austin Dillon, somebody in the Discord said it perfectly. They're like, missing persons alert on Austin Dillon.
I should have got, wish I would have thought of this. I would have picked up a milk carton and printed a picture of Austin Dillon's face and put it on it. What the hell, Austin Dillon? He just nowhere to be found all day long.
That 3-car was gone. I mean, from the start, finished 27th. It was just.
I found a matchup. I found a matchup that morning of Chase Briscoe versus Austin Dillon. I thought that was the easiest money in the entire world. I think BJ McLeod beat him. So rough.
It was bad. It was bad. Yeah, definitely not anything for Austin Dillon.
Yeah, and Suarez again looked really good, and he's going to be a guy I'm going to have to give more respect to because I did not see it coming from Suarez repeating what happened last season, and he's done a great job. So maybe they know something over there, and that's why they locked these guys up. I had the easiest matchup potentially in the history of NASCAR racing. Corey LaJoie over Ty Dillon, -190. Again, not even close. Corey LaJoie, 20th place run again. I mean, 20th doesn't sound that good, but for this team, he ran a great race again. He beat guys like Ty Gibbs, Chris Buescher, Ryan Preece in much bigger Austin Dillon, in much bigger rides. And yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Austin Dillon did beat Chase Briscoe? How am I just realizing this?
Because the end of that race was sort of a sweat for you for Kyle Larson's sake. You didn't pay attention to anything down there.
Wow. He was losing to him the whole race. That's great. Okay. Yeah. And BJ McLeod was about 3 spots behind them both. So,
yeah.
Anyways, Corey LaJoie, another great day. Ty Dillon, again, beaten by BJ McLeod and JJ Yaley. He finished 34th. He was running at the end of the race, but not anywhere close to anything if they continue to offer this matchup. -190. I know it seems kind of ridiculous to lay that, but you want to pay the juice if you lose again. And this matchup is just nowhere to be found. I don't want to get too far off track, Rod, but Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi on their podcast, The Teardown, shout out to those guys. They were discussing the options for the 9-car because going forward, right, Chase Elliott's going to miss potentially 6 weeks, 10 weeks. They've not been given a timeline, but that's kind of been the guesstimates based on the injury. We did not know Friday when we recorded, but it was a fractured tibia that he suffered in the snowboarding accident. But they were talking about what if Hendrick Motorsports, of course, you call Jimmy Johnson first, right? You got to call Jimmy Johnson. And, but if that doesn't work out, which he's got Carvana as a sponsor, the 9-car has Kelly Blue Book, so potentially some sponsorship issues there. But if that phone call does not work, the next phone call you make has to be to Spire Motorsports, right? You say, hey, we're going to give you Josh Berry. He's going to run the 7-car. We're going to put Corey LaJoie in this 9-car and see what he can do. Rod, that was like a wet dream for me as they were talking about that. My favorite driver replacing my other favorite driver in the meantime, getting a shot at a good ride. I don't care what car you put him in. Give this man a shot in a good car. You look at the upcoming schedule, Atlanta in 2 weeks, Rod. Mm-hmm. Corey LaJoie in a Hendrick car at Atlanta. Oh, sweet baby Jesus.
He may have to change the name of his podcast to Stacking Quarters.
Oh, my God. I love it, Rod. I love it. But no, so, yeah. Oh, man. And there's not been an announcement. I continually refreshing Bob Pockrass's Twitter over here today, which has been very quiet. The roster on NASCAR.com was updated this morning, and Josh Berry was placed on there. It was then updated again as TBA. So, and then the official entry list was released, also says TBA. So, it sounded like Hendrick was hoping to have an announcement Monday, which is today. Right now, it's almost 8:00 in the Central Time, and no announcement yet. So, hopefully, they're working out that deal to get Corey LaJoie over there. And Spire has an alliance with Hendrick. They use Hendrick pit crews, Hendrick motors, and all of that stuff. So, I think that's a very awesome possibility. Continue to give the 9-car car owner points, right? You need that. Give LaJoie a chance. It's still his points, and he's in the playoffs, I believe. And you give him some points in the 9-car, get him back over in that 7. Maybe he has a potential to make the playoffs, and that would help Spire because it would put their car in the playoffs with their driver. Could be a win-win-win for everybody. Just saying, Rod, let's get it done. I will. Oh man, you're gonna hear him. You're gonna hear the cheer from there in California if Corey LaJoie's putting that 9 car.
Mr. Hendrick, his Twitter is about to blow up because Cody's about to message him like 500
Hopefully
times.
he's got his DMs closed because otherwise I'm about to blow him up.
Dear Mr. Hendrick, I have a proposal for you.
Well, and I mean, it's not just. I mean, of course, I probably could have thought of that on my own, but coming from guys like Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi, those are pretty smart guys with they're pretty high up in the NASCAR media. So I think that we should just follow their lead, Mr. H.
Bob Pockris is about to say Cody Zeeb has predicted the future. All right, let's get back to the bets. We done.
You're sorry, you know I can't cover Corey LaJoie without going off on a separate tangent.
And that's I forgot the harp. Oh well. All right, so my next bet. For the love of God, AJ Allmendinger. Man, I had AJ Allmendinger as the winner of Group C that contained the likes of Ricky Stenhouse, Ryan Preece, Harrison Burton, and of course, Eric Almirola, who was the one damn guy to beat freaking AJ Allmendinger. And it wasn't even until the very, very end of the race, the 16 had something go wonky and slid back a couple of spots. And Eric Almirola
I have a question. I'm raising my hand if you're watching on YouTube.
What?
How can you explain to me, Rod, the end of the Daytona 500 when there's a wreck that's just the same as the wreck that is at the end of this race, immediate caution flag. We have to well, first Daniel Suarez spins on his own by himself. He's fine. He could have continued to roll and been fine. And Kyle Busch could have won the Daytona 500 cash for us. They don't throw the caution. Then they throw the caution super fast in overtime. When that happens this week, it's Eric Almirola bounces off the wall, caution flag. Oh my God. And then there's like 57 cars wrecking on the backstretch and we let them race back to the checkered flag. What are we doing, Rod? And then Derek has to bring up Cardboard Gate on his podcast and bring back my PTS from that. Oh man. Come on, NASCAR. You're killing me. What the hell is a fucking caution flag? Just make it clear for me so I know. I'm like, oh, caution. Oh, okay. We're gonna race back. And then I was screaming. When Almirola spun, I'm like, that's not a caution. What are you doing? I knew I lost it right then. Oh.
Not even a little. And not just that. I mean, look, a caution in NASCAR is like what's a catch in football? No one knows. No one knows.
That is yes, that is exactly, Rod. That's what is a catch? What is a caution? Nobody knows. We'll probably never find out. It's unfortunate.
Well, it's a shifting target. I mean, one week it's Eric Almirola brushing the wall. The next week it's 55 cars. The I-5 just getting cluttered with the crash, and now we're not.
It's 1998. Let them race back to the yellow flag.
Whatevs, man. But yeah, AJ Allmendinger, winner of Group C, almost had it at plus 400. That would have been fun. But it wasn't.
It was close. You were only 2 spots off. And again, at 4-1, that's pretty good odds. I also had a group bet. I'm trying to find who all was in that group. I had Alex Bowman to win that group, plus 400. And he did win that group, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Because neither one of his teammates were in that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he finishes third. Again, Alex Bowman. And, we'll just talk about it right now. I gave him out at 22-1 to win. Second week in a row, I've given him out at 22-1. Second week in a row where he's had a top 5 car throughout the race. Please, books, just don't update that. Continue to put him at 22-1, and he's going to make my card every week. Like Alex Bowman has been good. Hendrick clearly is the top team in the stable right now. I will continue to bet Alex Bowman if we get him anywhere north of 15-1, probably. He's going home to Phoenix this weekend. A track that he's right from the Phoenix area. So, yeah, it's. Again, the disrespect for Bowman has been crazy, but I had him to win Group C. And the guys he was going against, Christopher Bell, who ended up having a decent race. He finishes 5th. Pretty decent there at the end. Martin Truex Jr. finishes 7th. They tried staying out. Looking back, that didn't work so well, right? But I will give them some props because I think that if you stay out, other cars are going to stay out. And if you can put a barrier there, if a wreck happens after they take the white flag or something, he could still be holding the lead. They've not won in a long time. Martin Truex Jr.'s winless streak is getting up there. Won the Clash, yes, doesn't count towards the official wins and whatnot, exhibition race. But then also after the race, when they went to take off the right rear tire, the lug nut was stuck, Rod. So had they pitted, that would have been a disaster.
Yep.
And they would have not, because they would have changed 2 tires, would have been the right side tires, and it would have been a disaster. He would have finished way back there. So in hindsight, despite him dropping like a rock, literally through the field, ends up being a good move for them. But I just wanted to throw that out there. And then the other person in that was Tyler Reddick. He bounced off the wall all day long. It was an up and down day for him. Again, 15th really is a good finish for him at this point, just for the way his season has started. They unloaded the car, tried to fire it up, had to change the motor. He missed practice. He missed qualifying, started dead last. 15th place finish ended up being an okay finish for him. But Alex Bowman does win the group. Just keep bumping Bowman down here in this Group C area. I would love to continue to hit on that.
To keep making money. My next one was a heartbreaker as well. I had Hamlin as the top Toyota, and he was for a very long time. And he was actually leading the race.
End of regulation. 3rd place, top Toyota.
It happened. Eric Almirola screwed the whole damn thing up. I won't blame him. It wasn't necessarily his fault. The guy with the button screwed it all up. And now here we are, not cashing another bet because Hamlin could not get back up there. And I don't know what it was, man. I don't know what happened, but yeah, I mean, we're talking Truex, and then Bell passed him. His Toyota teammates just found him, and he just kept getting picked off, man. Bubba picked him off. Bell picked him off. Truex picked him off. Denny Hamlin wound up in 11th place after all that. Yeah,
just again, we already kind of touched on it, but yeah, bad finish at the end, despite being 3rd at the end of regulation. Sucks for a guy like that. For winners, I gave out on the show last week, Chase Elliott at 12-1. Obviously, the snowboarding incident happened after that. We talked about it. It happened literally the news came out right before we recorded the DFS show on Friday. So I switched my pick on that show to Kyle Larson at 8-1. That's why you got to make sure you listen to all the shows. Also, I did drop it in the Discord too. So if you're over there, you would have caught it. Oh man, Rod. First of all, Chase Elliott at 12-1 with as good as Hendrick looked would have been absolutely great value. So I don't hate not doing that. We did have someone in the Discord drop that a certain book was not refunding their Chase Elliott bet. And are you kidding me? Like if I bet Patrick Mahomes under passing yards and he doesn't even show up to practice that week or play in the game, you're not going to give me that. Whatever. He did contact support a second time. They refunded it. Fine. Gindy suggested, and props to him in the Discord, hey, contact support again. You might get somebody different, somebody that understands a little better. He did, and they gave it to him as a free bet or whatever for later on. So if that happened to you, you're going to use it that way anyways. So if that happened to you, make sure you contact them again. He never even made it to the track. He didn't practice. He didn't qualify. Nothing. He was never
even make it to the state of Nevada.
He was never in Nevada. Yeah, exactly. So you should get that refund if you placed it. But so then I gave out Larson 8-1, obviously winning at the end of regulation, heartbreak into overtime. Kevin Harvick at 20-1. Again, didn't like his car, but finished 9th. He was up there all day. He's always going to be a threat. Good chance I pick him to win this week again at Phoenix. Unless Rod beats me to it, I won't claim that one just yet. And then Alex Bowman, 22-1. We already talked about that, but man, just keep giving us that number on Alex because he's going to bust through and win one of these here real soon.
He will. And so will Trackhouse this season. I gave out Chastain at 8-1. Again, it was just not really, they didn't have it. They didn't have quite the same type of speed as the Hendrick stable. They were still fast. Chastain was still up in the mix most of the day. But boy, Daniel Suarez, we talked about him just kind of charging up to the front. I gave out Trackhouse as sort of a, fun little double dip if Chastain were to have won at 6.5-1. But yeah, you got to give props to Daniel Suarez for being able to just, he was just grinding his way. He started 24th, worked his way up to a 10th place finish and, beat his teammate, beat Chastain. If all things equal, he passed him up toward the end of that regulation run, and I was pretty impressed with the way that 99 car was hanging tight. That purple Tootsie's car looking pretty good moving up through the field. So, hell, man, You give him another, I don't know, 20 laps. He could have maybe been jockeying around to the front, and your Trackhouse bet would have. So how many more green, white checkers we given before Daniel Suarez made his way back up to the front for that? But yeah, again, like I said, neither one of them cashed, but I still am not going to be afraid to bet either one of these guys for solid finishes and in the right cases for a win this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I got a little distracted on another Corey LaJoie story. Sorry, Rod, but Joseph Strigley over at Toby Christie says, let Corey LaJoie play super sub. God, I love all these people on the Corey LaJoie bandwagon. Welcome to the place I have been for so many years.
Nobody's gonna. Cody's gonna welcome everybody on the bandwagon. Come on, buddy. Come on, show me your teeth.
Get Corey LaJoie, put him in that car, make some Stacking Pennies merchandise with the 9. I will buy all of it. Anyways,
Stacking
yes,
bills.
I do think that Trackhouse will continue to be solid. I mean, they did prove throughout the day. It wasn't there quite at the end, but Chastain was running up front. I mean, he finished 3rd in stage 1, 7th in stage 2, and again, Daniel, we talked about it earlier. He looked solid throughout the day. So I think that going forward, they're going to be a team to continue to watch. We go to Phoenix here this weekend. Chastain almost won that race in that overtime. That was a crazy overtime finish there with Briscoe winning that. Chastain was right there. He won at Coda, which is coming up. And yeah, so there's going to be some good tracks again in the near future for Trackhouse. And again, that Chevrolet power is looking top notch. And so I think that you're going to continue to see the Hendrick and Trackhouse cars be at the top most places for a little while until Toyota and Ford can catch up.
Yep, Red Bull and Ferrari. Expect to see the bow ties up front for a very long time. All right. Well, as we close the book on Las Vegas, like you said, we do look forward to Phoenix, and we will have a full slate for you coming up this week of betting shows, and of course our DFS show. We'll keep you posted on if and when one of these is going live this week. We may just surprise you with a live show and get you ready for the weekend of racing.
Yep. And if you click that bell for the notifications on YouTube, you'll be alerted when it is live. And if you're in the Discord, we'll make sure to drop a ping in there for you as well. So yeah, but you can follow me on Twitter at Husker_Zeeb. Check out the Old Fashioned Football podcast over on the SGPN Fantasy Football feed. I made a short appearance talking about some Superflex leagues there last week. Going to be on with Justin, and Miranda will be back this week. She's feeling better, luckily. We're going to talk a couple of fun different types of fantasy footballs leagues to play in. We're going to talk some Guillotine League, some Pirate League, something else. I can't remember what it was. But yeah, we're going to have some fun over there. So definitely go check that out as well. And then, yeah, follow all my work at Husker_Zeeb.
Please do. He is a man of many, many, many interests and is fantastic at all of them. I hope I got you drunk saying fantastic. You guys are playing the drinking game. Love it. Follow me on Twitter at RJ Villagomez. Drink every time I retweet Cody. Retweet Cody.
That's a tongue twister.
It's time to go. Follow me on Twitter at RJ Villagomez. Link in the bio to everything I got going on, whether it's here, Sportsbook Review, or in between media. We'll be back again tomorrow. Set up some Phoenix Raceway bets. Till then, let's go racing and let it ride.